Alrighty, guys, what's going on? We're going to be going over the recaps of the trades for today. Today was a very, very, very nice day for me that essentially stood up the week. Um, I could be risk off for the rest of the week, considering we got FOMC, um, some data ahead of us, and yeah, it's just not the best time to really be trading. Um, so let's just dive into it. First of all, I want to talk about my short bias. I don't know why a lot of people are they gravitate so hard towards the longs. And it's just a simple retest of a break in the structure, a break and a failure of higher low trend. It's not anything new. It's basically just playing short where there was previous sellers at. It's literally as simple as that. I don't know why there was so many bulls right in this area or even over here. I had to lay off the bullish bias and the dip buy kind of approach because I didn't know when this sell would come, but we did have a major imbalance candle here that likely price is going to facilitate towards. This was a data markdown, and what this was doing was kind of just reaccumulating for a higher low and then a push back higher into more important data, that being FOMC, that being jolts. So typically what happens is I do like to fade the side, especially the side that looks like it's low volume after a heavy volume sell, especially with given the context of the chart, considering the fact that we are failing the higher low structure. Higher low, higher low, higher low, higher low, higher low, equal low, failure. This is the failure candle, right? This is technically the failure candle where we are failing important higher lows, right? We're taking out this one, we're taking out this one, we're taking out this attempt, right? So whenever you see that, price is typically going to draw its way back there, considering the fact that the overall auction for the past 6, 7 trading days has been relatively dry, given the fact that we are heading into earnings. So yeah, I just want to. This is pretty much what I was doing, and I was looking to short SPY, and I was shorting SPY yesterday. Okay, and I figured, with a very well-established orb high, meaning whenever we're pushing down, we're filling partial areas of the overnight gap that we did establish. This is where I started adding into the short Friday. We gapped up, I was red, I added more, and then we never got a swipe of the orb, and that was going to be my overall risk tolerance. And if it didn't work, I was also going to be looking to short into 512. Now, the overall gauge that I did use for the trade itself wasn't actually SPY, it was more and less the QQQ. And what QQQ was doing was it was just giving a really, really, really clean level of where we had our technically our breakdown candle. And afterwards, what we did get was the retest and then a subsequent secondary failure bar. And this was all pretty much just pushing for certain into this bear gap and likely into the January OPEX territory into this unfilled gap. And then that's kind of where we got our bounce was off this resistance, now a breakout January OPEX candle. And then from there, we kind of filled some of the imbalance left behind on this bar itself because this was a very nice trend day. And then we did continue our way higher, incrementally being sold off at those higher highs, creating this overall distribution schematic that's kind of taking place. And I'm just kind of playing with that, right? Because that's what we've been in, and that's what I've been talking about for how long now? Ever since pretty much like February, early February, that I'm in a bear or spectate mode, given the fact that we have all of these highs being sold, um, high after high, just sold, 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 right? So um, let's just talk about the overall execution now. So this is a bear gap, right? Or this is a bull gap, and when that bull gap is lost, it is now bearish territory. So anybody who sold through this heavy candle would likely sell again, right? And that same person who is potentially selling here, reaccumulating what he sold from up here at however much cheaper, is likely going to bail again, given the fact that this is all just a simple mitigated looking rally where you're getting buyers that are getting the short term imbalance within the tape and all that really is because the auction is not heavy. It's kind of just floating its way higher on lower volume and kind of some weakness. And what it's doing is it's just pushing back into the progress that the previous seller was making that was breaking us out of this um, top heavy distribution, right? So when we're looking at this on the 5, we're going to talk about the orb one more time. And then we're going to talk about how we did get the failure, and then we got the sell into close, and then a nasty relief right afterwards. After that, guys, what do we get? Is we're opening within the same spot, and we're just getting lower high after lower high after lower high after breakdown after failures of major psych levels after previous day lows that are retesting and giving us the move lower. And where I'm pulling my levels from is pretty much just this high. So we'll take this high because this was where I was looking for the retest on my short beforehand, and then I didn't scale in here, and then I experienced more drawdown into this resistance. Turning a support was never retested, kind of just moved its way higher. And then, like I said, you're starting to get that micro distribution kind of happening on the bar by bar imbalance, right? So bar by bar imbalance, we've talked about this in the Discord with my students. What it is, it's just major sell side candles, a lot of volume behind them, and price drawing its way back into those major sell side candles that are very important. And it's recollecting any sort of seller, or it's bringing in a seller into the market. So here was my short from up here, didn't sell it down here, and then it did unfortunately rally into close, and then I was looking for that same short side bias into the next day, given the fact that, like I said, we're kind of failing and putting in lower highs afterwards. Now, whenever we started to get this breakdown, this is whenever I started to understand that, okay, this is likely going to be a short side focus now. Once again, same exact thesis that I previously had, except what's going to happen is the new draw is going to be into this bull gap that was never tested into. Okay, so whenever we start seeing this massive knife through, and then you start getting this base, that's whenever I started to cover portions of the position. But this is all from the wider perspective, guys. A retest of a major, very, very important spot from a daily perspective or a 4-hour perspective. So whenever you see the failure, and then whenever you see no true strong bid really coming in into the market, whenever you see potential hammers coming in on VIX, from like a, let's go over to VIX real quick. Yeah, so not hammers, but retests of something that looks like this. Go back over to QQQ, and this is a very, very perfect execution spot over here, or within kind of risking your high of day with like a lower high, or risking a breakdown at it underneath your orb low technically, which would be right over here. Now you are technically buying a support, but like I said, this isn't necessarily such a relevant support. This is more and less just relief from that distribution taking place. Um, that was kind of momentarily happening after we established the orb high on Monday, and then we never tapped it, and we kind of failed it, and then we rallied into the close, right? So this was likely all kind of just like some sort of bull trap. Um, and then, like I said, just a complete and total failure. And this was also kind of another example of prices driving its way down off of news, and then a buyer kind of steps in, maybe absorbs any sort of seller here, and then you get this really nice, strong move into the close, and likely these buys are going to be sold. I can't really explain that all because it was more or less what I was seeing within the tape at the current time, but yeah, it just the chart just overall gave me red flags in terms of where to play this. So I stayed short, and here we are. This was my overall target down here. It was either going to be the SPY gap. And by the way, guys, I rolled some positions and I even added more into my positions from up here, scaled some, added some more, and then scaled. So my target was going to be like the 503.50 to 503 range, and that's exactly where we got to with ease. And then within QQQ, this is our bull gap on Qs right here. So 424.45 to be exact was kind of also what I was using as a gauge for a target, or you could have grabbed the bull gap from over here. Because the wider perspective from like a weekly print or like a, well, not necessarily a weekly print, but from a daily print and from where the activity is happening, who's winning from the perspective of this massive gap is where you should be trading, right? And that's the overall basis of this trade. Now I want to go over into MMM because this one's really nice. Been talking about this one, guys. I'm going to talk about it a little bit more. I really was really optimistic about this report. Um, right behind Snapchat, pretty much. So I did add some commons into it, like for pretty much all of 2024, especially after seeing this candle and then this base. I started adding a solid portion off of 90. I want to keep my, considering the fact of where we are on the chart, this is where you keep it trailing really tight to manage your risk after being up on the trade itself, and then seeing this potentially this really strong weekly print come into play off of this resistance, right? Um, so yeah, I want to go into like where I executed and how I went about this. Guys, oh man, I don't want to make this too confusing, but just a very simple level. 94.60 flat. It's your daily really strong resistance. You don't want to grab a wick. You want to grab the bulk of a resistance, right? Because that's where the larger perspective and more meaningful levels are going to be from, right? Is your preliminary resistance, and then that's just a false breakout. That's not necessarily where the resistance is super well established or where the resistance flip would be. So what I did was whenever I saw this level being held, I went long. I was long off of this print, risking this low. Um, and yeah, I just kind of scaled into strength as we got above this wick. And this was a really nice day trade for like, or bi-week. I had bi-weeklies and weeklies. The weeklies went 75%, and then I fucked up on the bi-weeklies. Or it might have been 3 weeks out. I can't remember. But that wasn't a big position. But it was still a nice trade. And then we had a really strong rip into close. Now I didn't catch this part, but it's really nice. So yeah, it's very basic. And I mean, you guys can take whatever you really want with this. And I didn't get a fill off the earnings report by act. Like I was so zoned in on my short that I never got filled on this one options wise as a swing for the report. So once I saw the positive report come out, really nice report, and then the nice gap up and retest, that's whenever I was like, okay, yeah, this is going to be a nice trade here. Spreads were really bad, but I was just buying into a support on the bid. So like I kind of took advantage of like, not, it's not like arbitraging, but it's like when you're catching a really nice bid fill, or even on the mid, whenever spreads are whack, and then you get a nice little pop and maybe like they tighten a little bit, then it's like, okay, you're gonna get a really nice juice on your premium. So yeah, I wish I caught the retest though. But yeah, that's that. That was MMM. It's an industrial. We'll go to the daily perspective and say, okay, we have a bear gap. Bear gap was all filled, really heavy volume leading into the bear gap, and then low volume sell, higher low, really heavy volume slice right through the bear gap um, high, I could say, and then a support that was built off of it into the report. This is an industrial from the larger perspective, guys. It's almost like an inverse head and shoulders industrial that's at 2011 levels. So I'm simply looking to roll profits on something that looks like this. I mean, it doesn't necessarily have to bounce there, but like I'm looking ultimately at the retest. If I can get this, that'd be awesome. If it wants to dig a little bit lower to the internal resistance that was established down into here, then by all means, I'm all for that. And that would also be a fill of the bull gap. So we will see how the chart shapes up and where that buyer post earnings comes into play. Maybe the sector catches a little bit of attention. Maybe war headlines come around again. It is an industrial. I don't necessarily know if this is the name that you want to be looking at in terms of like if war was on the table, but um, just it just catches attention to the sector. Maybe yields move their way higher. I don't know. I got to do my homework with industrials, kind of see how they perform. But yeah, this one's been performing like shit from like for a very long time. So keep in mind, guys, what else do we have? 2020 levels, 2020 low, major retest, right? But I just love how it's kind of building the resistance off the retest, and then it could potentially just pull something like this and just move its way probably back up into like, in my opinion, I would love to see like 10. The vol is cheap on this chain, so price target doesn't necessarily matter so much from a risk reward perspective because if you catch $5 on this, like you're super paid, super paid. Um, what else did I catch? Oh, LMT and snow. So we're gonna go over snow. Snow was a lotto that I was watching, but I didn't. I just kind of I was short SPY and I knew the market was gonna move its way lower. I've just been watching snow on this really nice gap up, and the reason as to why is because it's a three lower low accumulation, right? Lower low bought, it's sold, lower high, lower low, bought, sold off the bear gap, move lower, lower low bought, all to where? This little hidden gap over here, as well as a support, like a major support that has been a support for 166 days previously before it moved all the way up here to 237. So yeah, I'm not all like long term really interested in this because I don't know how I feel about this like weekly chart. It's like pretty bad, but like a strong weekly close or like a move down into here for a day trade beneath 155.88, if a buyer showed up beneath it, then like it would be really nice. And this is where I caught it. I noticed the hourly started to swipe this gap low candle, 155.80. It was also kind of testing like this resistance over here, 155. Go to the daily. There you are. Now this resistance isn't necessary. Like, okay, it's a gap down and then they claim it with a gap through. So likely what's going to happen is it's going to be defended for at least just a day trade. And that's kind of what I was seeing down here off of 155. So I had some exposure to just like lottos over here for the Amazon report, like proxy. And then I just was adding like one con at a time, cheaper cons, and then I started to add like a real position as I started to see like a buyer come in over here and move its way higher. And then I even said after the hourly hammer that came in, alrighty, sorry for the weird messages here, but um, Snow Hulk Dicks into close would be nice. That was whenever we started to see that hourly 156.58. So yeah, I was adding exposure kind of like within here, 150, kind of like within here, and then I just started to de-risk my position. I scaled a small portion of it, and then it went back break even, and I sold. So it wasn't the best trade, but it wasn't a trade that I had a lot of I didn't have a big like it wasn't a big risk to reward trade. It was more or less just get in and get out, stay away from the bearish momentum within the overall market itself. So yeah, that's that. Um, that would be all. I did take LMT. So LMT was a trade plan that I posted the night before last night. I was looking at like 465, um, and then I bought a decent amount, not a decent amount, like a half size on this retest, and then it moved its way lower. I was down a decent bit, but it wasn't anything horrible. And then I started to add a lot more exposure as it started to bleed, and I had other positions previously to this. So, and MMM was going really nicely with this one. So like ex- this was kind of like making me have a little bit of drawdown in terms of like almost canceling the MMM win. But I figured with where this was from like this really nice fluent move. This was just not necessarily the best trade to be taking, I'm not gonna lie. But yeah, I did load the dip down at like 464, 465, started accumulating some more, and then this was kind of where I de-risked the position itself. I was up like 30 something percent, and then I went break even stop. I scaled a small portion, but I didn't make anything like I didn't realize a lot on this one. So these trades aren't really that relevant. But yeah, that's that. Um, there really there really ain't much more to it, man. Um, there was a couple really nice short side focuses, but yeah, other than that, not much. Really nice trading day based off of the short that I had. MMM was another really nice one. Um, but yeah, that's it.